Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming, taking time out of your afternoon to be here with us at NotSereneLife.com. And we're going to get into session number 3 on this and what the living soul looks like. But before we do that, I wanted to do a little recap over the first and second session because I was given some input about a little bit of confusion there. And I think it was because the person that came in on the second one, and they weren't really clear about how I was trying to move through this by not only looking at the first the 5 stages of grief and those feelings and emotions that are associated with it and what they look like and feel like and how we can learn to overcome those things in our own personal lives, and then be able to share those experiences with other people that are suffering through them too, because we already know, everybody here, that it's not unique to us only. Okay, everybody in humanity goes through all these same feelings and emotions, but what they do with them can be the defining line between success of overcoming and failure and succumbing to some of these things where a lot of people actually lose their lives, and the idea was to recognize those feelings. Then we have to within ourselves be that person that wants to apply those things to ourselves to overcome them, like a doctor will give you good advice and things that you need to do to get better to move to the next place. Or if we're doing a diagnosis on an engine or something like that I like to do, I like to be able to look at all the different things that I need to do to make that car work the best way, most efficient way that it can. We're no different than that, okay? And so then being able to understand that, and then being able to look at the things that have crept in through corruption and given us false doctrinal points of view, which Paul has been so great in sharing with us in a lot of his letters. We want to be able to show that to people that are dealing with these things, but not right away, because they're not open to that. We have to be very wise in how we do our diagnosis of people that are suffering with things so that we can use the right tools to start a process of comfort and recognition within themselves of how they can move through this, and then give them the scriptures that we know and use that comfort us and give us strength to overcome. And then maybe as we move through that process, they can start to look at things in their life of how they've been lied to and deceived, and how that's had such a negative effect on their life, and what he really wants for us. So when we were talking in session number 2 about Asleep with Our Fathers, we were exposing the lies that had been placed upon us and brought about this philosophy and this thought process that the soul was living after we pass away. Okay, and we looked at a number of scriptures that say exactly the opposite of that, according to the word of the Most High. Okay, and what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some more of those combined with the idea or the concept of what the living soul actually is from the Creator's point of view and not from the world's point of view. Okay, so we're going to get this underway here because we've got quite a few slides to go through, and there's always a lot of scripture, which is the best point about this. We need to go to the word and be well equipped in that. Put those in the toolbox, right time, right place. Okay. So here we go. Give me just a second to get this going, and we will walk through this stuff together. Okay. The living soul, Genesis 2:7, right from the beginning, right out of the gate after all of creation. Okay, and he says, and Yahuwah Elohim formed the man out of the dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being or soul. Okay, and what we're going to see as we start to understand how that soul works, there's an amazing thing that literally takes place. While some of us have asked that question, boy, I wish I had what was given to all the apostles in Acts 2 when they were so filled with that spirit that they could heal people and they could cast out demons and do miraculous things. Okay, we need to have a better understanding of how that actually works and what Paul says about that, which is going to be a pretty amazing thing when we learn to put that, what is already in us, into action. There are a lot of people in this world And my kids that are both RNs can tell you a myriad of stories about people that come in there into the hospital and they don't know why they're out of shape. They have no energy. Their life is just a mess and they don't have a clue how anything inside of them works at all. There's no self-evaluation going on here. Okay. And those are the things that we need to recognize that he placed in us right there when he said that he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Okay. And that is a really amazing thing. We're going to look at 1 Corinthians 2:10 through 13. But Yahuwah has revealed them to us. He's revealed this to us. The veil's been pulled back through his spirit. For the Ruach searches all things, even the depths of Yahuwah. For who among men knows the thoughts of a man except through the spirit or Ruach of a man? So if you're not in tune with your mind and your body and you don't understand how the spirit works, you think that they're completely two separate things and you're trying to put these together, but you don't even know how it works in the first place. And a lot of people, like I mentioned, have no clue. They've not taken any time in their own personal life to understand how they work. And why all these feelings and emotions from the first session in the 5 stages of grief are just overwhelming to them. Okay. So it's a process and we have to walk through that. Okay. So he says, who among men knows the thoughts of a man except the Ruach of the man that is in him? So also the thoughts of Yahuwah, no one has known except the Ruach of Yahuwah. But he says in verse 12, and we have received not the Ruach of the world, which is of Hasatan, but the Ruach that is from Yahuwah, in order to know what Yahusha has favorably given us. He's given that to us. We didn't even have a clue he did that. We're looking for this miracle, lights and the big goldfish bowl around our head that they want you think is what we're doing here. That's not what it is. He literally gave it to us and we have received not the Ruach of the world, but the Ruach that is from Yahuwah, in order to know what Yahusha has favorably given us, which we also speak, not in words which man's wisdom teaches, but what the Ruach HaKodesh teaches, comparing Ruach-like things, spirit-like things from the Most High with spirit-like things from the Most High. But we can also use that to recognize that other spirit that's alive and well and completely controlling everything in the world that we live in right now. Okay, that Ruach is also associated with the Kodesh, where we're set apart. That means that we're to separate and stand on the outside and look in and be ready when we have the opportunity to move into something that can help somebody else and even ourselves. Okay, even ourselves. James 2:26, for as the body without the Ruach is dead, so also the belief is dead without works. And we already know what the church teaches about that this does not exist. We don't have to do anything in the way of works whatsoever. But the part that's very important to look at here, as the body without the Ruach is dead. And we can look at that a couple of different ways. If we don't have the Spirit of the Most High in us, then we have the Spirit of Hasatan in us, and it's dead. We're just rotting inside, okay? If we have the Spirit of the Most High in us, that Spirit gives us everything that he talked about in that last slide that we just looked at in Corinthians, okay? And what we can access in the library of information that he's given us and be able to uncover and discover these secrets of Yahushua HaMashiach, okay? 1 Thessalonians 5:23, and the Yahuwah of peace himself set you completely apart from everything else in the world, and your entire spirit or Ruach and being and body be preserved blameless at the coming of our Adonai Yahushua Mashiach. Okay, there's a lot going on in that. Just to break it down a little bit here, to be preserved blameless, the word preserved in Strong's definition, both in the Greek and the Hebrew, is to keep safe from harm. So we have to be very careful what we do and protect that, because it's a very precious piece of cargo that he's given us. Okay. And something else that we need to look at in that too is that we're completely set apart, being and body. And we're going to talk about what the temple looks like in us that he gave us later on in the scripture. Okay. Because this is all put together. It's all combined. And I want to try to get everybody to recognize how we can share this with people that are really struggling, that don't have a clue about this stuff, because it's been completely removed from us in every aspect of our life. Okay. Ecclesiastes 12:6-7 says, and the dust returns to the eretz as it was, and the ruach returns to Elohim who gave it. That is just an amazing piece of scripture that people will not look at, or will completely overlook, when they believe that the spirit that we have is eternal and it goes on forever. And it is eternal, but it says without the spirit, the body is dead. Okay. Right. And that's a lot for people to wrap their mind around, because like I mentioned in the first and second session, they're waiting to go to the big bus stop in the sky and move on to the next chapter of eternal existence in their mind that they've been given through pagan beliefs. That's where this thing came from, that false idea that we're up there singing, or we're going to, some other place to become a higher level of conscious awareness. Okay. Those are pagan beliefs. And we gotta try, we can only try to do this, but that's the whole point. He wants us to plant those seeds so that we can get them to start growing and then get them planted on solid ground. Okay. And it's a process. It just takes time. Ezekiel 18:4, see, all beings are mine. When we go back to what it said in the book of Genesis, all beings, he created all beings through the breath, breathing in the nostril, and we became living beings, souls. They're all mine. The being of the Father as well as the being of the Son is mine, and the being that is sinning shall die. Now, we all know we're going to die because of the Adamic curse. We all die in sin. But what he mentioned on that last slide, okay, was that we were to be preserved blameless for the second coming of Mashiach. Well, how does that happen? That doesn't happen through our own work. That happens through his work. And if he sees us walking the way that he wants us to walk, he can sanctify us in every way that he wants us to, and we can become spotless and blameless, okay? But that's his work. It's not ours. Ours is just to follow the master, do what he asks us to do, become more well-equipped so that we can share in a time of need and offer comfort and strength through our understanding of the scripture and the wisdom that he wants us to have in that, okay? Acts 2:34, for David did not ascend into the Shamayim, and a lot of people think that he did. When he died, he went straight to heaven, okay? That's the misconception of how we cherry pick scripture to give us a doctrinal point of view that does not actually exist, okay? John 3:13 says, in contradiction to what that belief system may be, that no one has gone up into the Shamayim except he who has come down from the Shamayim, the son of David, which we know is Yahushua HaMashiach. Period. End of story. Okay. 1 Corinthians, and it's kind of unique how Paul puts so much of this in the books of Corinthians, and he's got so much weight put into this because of his own personal experience, which we're going to see. Okay. 1 Corinthians 15:20, but now Mashiach has been raised from the dead and become the first fruit of those having fallen asleep. Not going to the big bus stop in the sky, not becoming an elephant hanging out in India or a rabbit somewhere else, okay? That's not how it works. Job 14:13-14 has some unique characteristics in it too. If only you would hide me in the grave, conceal me until your wrath turns away. And any of us that know the story about Job and what he is experiencing right here in this particular point in time in his life is all the 5 stages of grief just compounded at a level that would normally wipe any one of us out. He's lost his children, his home, his livestock, all of his wealth, and he's covered with boils from head to toe from the stress, and he's freaking out, but he's staying strong in the word, and he's walking through that, but he knows he's sick. And when you know you're sick, we have to take time to be healed, okay? And sometimes that can take a very long time, and it can be very painful, all right? He says, set me a time and remember me. If a man dies, would he live again? All the days of my struggle, I wait till my change comes. He was completely familiar with what the word says, that when you die, your body goes back to the dust from where it came from. The Ruach goes to sleep and it goes back to the one who created it. And then till my change comes. And that's the day that we all want to be there for. We all want to be transformed into the likeness of the Most High and walk with him in the kingdom. That's the ultimate goal for all of us, okay? But we get blindsided by the things of this life and we get distracted, and that's normal, okay? One of the things that I always like to talk about when we're kind of getting off the beaten path and we're going down different trails about things that are going on in the world is that we need to come back and we need to look at what Scripture says about that, because that's where our focus needs to be. That's where our attention ultimately needs to be. But it's something that we ultimately have to just walk through, because this is a wicked world. This is just other scripture that backs up the idea of the nefesh, or the living soul, okay, the living being. And all of these scriptures have reference into exactly that, of what the soul looks like, or the references to the living soul, and how we can use those to build our arsenal up and put those in the toolbox and keep on trucking forward, okay? 1 Corinthians 3:16 through 17. Do you not know you are the Mishkan of Yahuwah, and that the Ruach of Yahuwah dwells in you? Now, for those who don't know what Mishkan is, that's the temple of Yahuwah. Okay, if anyone destroys the temple of Yahuwah, Yahuwah shall destroy him. For the Mishkan of Yahuwah is Kodesh, set apart, which we are. We have to spend a lot of time looking at this scripture and recognizing that when he left him in us, in the temple is in us. And through doing that self-diagnosis of all these feelings and emotions and these scriptures, we need to really consider how we tune our mind and our body, our Ruach, to him. He's that light coming into us, and it can't come out of us if we're not in tune and we're not walking in tune. And when he says that if anyone destroys the temple of Yahuwah, drugs, alcohol, stress, chaos, crime, all the sin that we can put into our life, he will destroy him, both in this life temporally through cause and effect, and in the next life for those who are extremely wicked, when he says, depart from me, I do not know you, you doers of iniquity, okay, into annihilation. And that we're going to get into in the next session of the false doctrine of hell. But there's some really cool things in here when he says, do you not know that you are the temple of Yahuwah? That is so paramount, and it's so outside of the realm of our little existence that we can't believe that he would actually, the creator of all things, put something in us that we have access to. What did Paul do in his life as a Sadducee, as a Pharisee? He murdered people, persecuted and tortured people who spoke in this very name. Okay. And then the Father had a bigger plan for him, and he brought him to his knees, and he says, now you're going to preach in my name and in the name of my Son. Okay. And what did he do? He put that Ruach in him that completely changed his life, and everything that he saw was given to him from the Most High to give to us so that we could give it to somebody else. This is working in concert with the Father. This is being able to go up Jacob's ladder into the heavenly realm and be able to talk to him and ask him to do this for us, to equip us with this insight and the wisdom that we can grow strong and build strength in. It's a process. It takes time, but we got to be able to wrap our little minds around this, that this is much bigger than all of us. Okay. 2 Corinthians 16. And what union has the Mishkan of Yahuwah with idols? We have nothing to do with idols. That's another point of discovery that we can share with other people that are church going, but they don't fully understand this. Those who are not involved in church, those who are pushed away from the concept of understanding who Yahuwah and Yahusha are, because the word JC or the J man that we refer to here has been used as a term to cause confusion, chaos, and fermenting. It's turned them away from wanting to even look at this stuff or to even consider that it exists in truth, because to them it's all a lie. And when they're watching the Bozo Clown Show, okay, and I'm not talking about the people that are going into the congregation looking for the word of the Most High. I'm talking about the guys that are running those circus shows. They are liars and deceivers. And they're leading these people literally into what we know as the, quote, lake of fire, okay, or torture and torment for all eternity. But that's a whole nother discussion for later, and we will get into that, okay? He says, for you are the Mishkan of the living Yahuwah, as Yahuwah has said, I shall dwell in them, giving us his Ruach when he breathed into us, and then he will walk among us when we are in that final place. He will come down and commune with us every day, and that's going to be so awesome. And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. So there's a lot going on here that we can look at of how we can recognize what he's blessed us with in becoming imagers of the character and the attribute of all creation in us and through us, and give that to other people when they wonder why we look the way that we look, like we have a shining presence about us. We just look more alive, and we're more at peace with the chaos and the confusion that's going on in the world, because we've decided to walk away from that, because he told us to. You're a set apart people. Come out of her, my people. Don't be hanging around with them. That's the whole point, okay? 2 Corinthians again, 4:16 through 18. Therefore, we do not lose heart, because the things of this world are designed to make people feel hopeless and helpless. I saw a young man yesterday when I was out doing some errands, and he was sitting in this kind of park-like area that I have around by my house, and he was sitting there by himself, and he literally looked like he was lost. Aww. Like he was struggling with some horrible things in his life that were consuming him. And when I went by him, it just kind of clicked on me. I need to go back and see if I can help this brother. Okay. But when I got back, he was gone. Okay. But I know sometimes it's hard to do that. We're busy. I got it. Okay. But man, when he puts that on me anymore, it's so compelling for me to go and speak with somebody, because I may have that opportunity to do something that's out of the realm of my, it's got nothing to do with me. It's all about him. He's the one that's tugging on my heartstring. He's the one that's saying, hey, that's a brother of yours. He's lost, man. He needs some help. Go over and love him a little bit, you know? So that's just something that we have to walk into also. And we have to recognize that when he said he is living in us, he's knocking on our door when these things are happening and we're not paying attention to it. Okay. And that's part of the transformation of being able to understand how he placed this Ruach in us and what we can do to build that up in us so that it comes out of us and we become those imagers that he wants us to be. When he created us in his essence or his image, that was the whole point. Okay. In this walk, we're not the zombies, we're the zombie killers, but that's, you know, we're trying to kill that spirit. Okay, we want to kill that spirit of Hasatan that's living in the rest of the people of the world that feel hopeless and helpless. Okay, and this is why when he says, for this is slight momentary pressure, and we think that it is for all eternity when we're walking in it, because it's consuming every aspect of our human existence. It's bringing us to our knees. When is this going to end? Well, if we're going to walk the right way and know that this is a process that we have to walk through, we'll eventually come to the other side, because that's his plan for us. And he will carry us through to that. But it's going to be, for my own personal experience, it has been gut wrenching and so painful. Okay. But once I got to the other side, maybe some of you have experienced these successes in your own life. Those are successes that he's given us. It's not of ourselves. Okay. But he's given it to us because we're walking the way that he wants us to walk, and we haven't fully recognized that yet. Okay. And we're still trying to build strength in that. It's a momentary pressure, and he's working for us a far more exceeding and everlasting weight of esteem. Yeah. There's the reward. That's what it's going to be when we get there. Okay. We are not looking on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen passes away, and we all know that this is chaff and it's all going to be burned away. The only thing that's not is when we get to that point and he sanctifies us, because we've been proved blameless at that moment in time when we get to walk through that gate at the end of the narrow path. And what a glorious day that's going to be. Okay. Yes. So we got to stay the course. Like he says, stay the course, finish the race. Doesn't matter what it looks like. We don't know when that's going to be or how that's going to happen. Okay. It could be through natural causes. It could be through a car wreck. It could be through World War III. We don't know. Strength to persevere. And we can only do that if we're focusing on the word and what he has to say and not what the world has to say. Okay. For what is seen passes away, but what is unseen is everlasting. And that's the heavenly realm on earth, the renewed heaven and earth that's going to be so glorious. We can see some really beautiful videos of things that are so wonderful. And we can only imagine that the whole entire world is going to look like that. And we're going to get to walk in it. Okay. That's the beauty of the word. And we need to place that constantly in our mind and constantly in our being. And one of the things that I've done over the last 20 years through the tragedies and the triumphs of my own personal life is always walking towards peace. I've had a life full of chaos and confusion, like a lot of us have. Today, I live in a place that is nothing but peace. And that's what I constantly pursue all the time. Doesn't mean that things aren't going to happen and that we're not going to have things to deal with, like deaths and, financial issues or whatever they are, the things of this world. If we're walking with his Ruach in us and we recognize that, he will give us the power to overcome anything. And it's not about this short little 80 years maybe that we get to spend in this world. It's about the eternity that we're going to be blessed with, that he's going to give us, because we recognize that in this world. Okay. That's the end of that one, guys. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I know there's always going to be more to come.
That was wonderful, William. I think all of those scriptures you gave us were to help us and then help others, right? So
Absolutely.
probably when we're in the middle of dealing with this loss, that's going to be dealing with it can go a couple of months to several years, like Jane talks about her sister. But I think it'd be really helpful for everybody if you get the larger index cards that are like this size and put each one of those scriptures on a card so that you can go back to them very easily. I mean, write it out on the card. Writing scriptures out are going to get deep down into you. And these particular scriptures, we want them inside of us very deeply. So I would highly, we'll get the list of scriptures emailed back out to you all, so you'll have them. And then I really, really recommend going into the preferred scripture that we use, which is the BYNB, which you can't see. There you go. There you can see it because I got a fake background. Anyway, and I let me see how my day goes. I might even write these scriptures out for you just in case you don't have this this version. And the wonderful thing about this particular version is that Lou White went to the trouble to make sure that the names were correct and revise some of the areas where it had been misinterpreted by the scribes. So this is why we like to use this particular version. It's available on TorahZone.net and also on Amazon. Not that I want to do a commercial. I just want you to know where it is. Okay. Yeah. You just have to know how to get it. It's not in bookstores, so you got to know. So we'll get those scriptures out to you so you can write them. Please do not just cut them out and tape them on a card. Write them out. You can get index cards for $1 at the Dollar Tree. That's a great place to get your index cards instead of $5 back. Anyway, so we'll do that. So now I want to open up for questions, and we're dealing with today where we are in the grief cycle and just questions about that in general. Would that be correct, William?
Yeah, absolutely. And Margaret makes a really great point. One of the things that I've learned through the journey is that if I don't write this scripture down so that it gets planted in this brain bucket of mine, okay, it's going to go right out the window. Okay. And that's been one of the great tools that I've been able to use to be able to remember scripture the way I really want to, and be able to have like that rolling index in my mind so I can do that.
You can also write those out and then put them on a round ring, put a hole in the top of the card and put them on a round ring, and maybe get the smaller cards, not the big cards. And then you can carry them in your purse for the ladies. Men can keep them somewhere so that, if you get struck in a moment where you're just really struggling because something has triggered you, you can flip to one of them and read the piece of Yahuwah right there, right wherever you are. Yes, Jackie, you're up.
Talking about the 5 stages, I'd like to know if anyone else has experiences like 3 of them at once, or 2, more than one stage. Can it go from 4 to 2 to 5 to 1?
You can go through all the stages in 30 seconds.
Absolutely, every one of them, and it will come on like a flood of uncontrollability. Okay.
Yeah.
It can and it will wipe you out. Okay.
Yeah,
so one of the things that I learned when my son passed away, that was, as you can imagine, like any death in our families, but of a sibling, of my son, it was crippling. So there are a couple of things that I would recommend maybe to consider. Obviously, I went straight to the scripture, but I couldn't find a relief in that. But that was just the process that he wanted me to walk through so that I would learn what I know now. Okay. But I did seek out a doctor because I did need some help with some things. Okay. And the gentleman that he put in my path was also a believer. And that gentleman helped me for the last 10 years until I moved to Texas. And he says, I'm going to put you on some Ativan, which is a benzodiazepine. Okay. And he goes, you know, you're going to get addicted to this, right? And I go, yeah. And you and I are going to cross that bridge when I get to it, and we'll walk off of that together, you know? And that's exactly what happened. So there are some things in this life that we may be adamantly opposed to, but in a time of need, it's there to help us if we're looking at it from the right perspective. Okay.
Absolutely. And that can be at any time. It doesn't have to be just immediately after the loss of someone. It can be, and I'm gonna pick on you, Jane, because it's been such a long time for your sister. Even for her, if she's not on something to help her, something could help her at this point, right? So it doesn't, what I'm getting at is that it doesn't have to be, you know, a month after you've lost your spouse or child. It could be a year or two after you lost them. So yeah, it doesn't have to be right away. Does that help you, Jackie?
Sure, yeah, but then you have the guilt of relying on pharmakia because you had to have that crutch. Not pointing fingers at anyone because I've been there myself. I'm just saying the mental battle of dealing with that because because that's real.
William, came to that point. He knew he needed help. William, want to speak about the battle you had between your belief and needing the pharmaceutical?
Yeah, because that was in 2011 when he passed away. In 1985, I went to rehab to get off of a cocaine addiction that I had because I was born and raised in Hollywood, played rock and roll throughout all the 70s in Hollywood, hung out with all the guys, and everything that was going on in that era. And so in 1985, when I got sober, I was thinking those same thoughts and I had reservations about it. But when you're so overcome by this, sometimes reality is a better defining line that we should look at and how we're going to move back into that place that we want to be. Okay. And if we're thinking about it like I was from the right thought process, he already knew that I had a drug addiction problem at one time in my life. And he's like, I'm going to give this to you because you need it. And then we're going to work together to bring you out of this when you're at that point in time. And that wasn't until 3.5 years later when I decided that I was going to lay this down because I wanted to get away from it. But at that same time, I was now addicted to Norcos too because of back pain and things that I was dealing with there. So I had a double whammy going on there, okay? And once again, that was something that I needed to do because the pain of what I was physically going through was so intense. It was just something that I felt I needed to do. And if I did it with the right idea and the right motive, it was to move away from where I was at. He was going to give me the ability to overcome that too. He's given me the ability to overcome absolutely everything in my life because I recognize he gave me that ability to do that. And then you know what he did? He gave me Job. Everything was taken from Job. And I mentioned this the other day. If he would have closed the door on his belief, he wouldn't have got the blessing that the Most High had for him that came to him later down the road. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing those same kind of miracles in my life right now today with the people that I'm meeting and the opportunities that I get to share this and relationships that I'm building that I never thought I would ever have in my life again.
Wow.
You can't close the door on a lot of things. Sometimes we just got to be wise about it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Jackie.
So
sure. I hope you understand. I wasn't like trying to be judgy or anything because I know what it's like to have this thing when you wake up. It's right in front of you, and it's like right front and center. And I do totally relate. And I just don't want you to think I'm passing judgment, but I know that struggle because it's like, you feel you're defeated or something if you resort to something like that.
Well, you can feel that way, but then let's look at where is your relationship with Yahuwah if you're feeling that way. you're not, you might need to be a little, what I want to say, more active in your relationship with him so that he can give you peace about using the help that's available. You're living in a machine. You're living in a machine, and you've got to keep your body working and moving. And sometimes the machine needs, help from the mechanic that we call doctors. And that help, you don't want it to interfere with your spirit. So what William was doing was keeping his spirit separate from helping his body feel better. So it was that deeper relationship with Yahuwah will help you do that when you need to.
Well, yeah, and I agree. Your body can become addicted to a substance where your mind, or your spirit is not addicted, but your body is addicted. And that's what, you have to overcome.
And I think that's probably where William was with his use of it. He knew Yahuwah well enough that Yahuwah would walk the road with him.
Let's look at Joshua 1:9 that I have here on page 8, if you can see that. It says, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, nor be discouraged or dismayed. For Yahuwah your Elohim is with you wherever you go. That's a really important scripture because he says, have I not commanded you? Mm-hmm. It's an instruction that we are supposed to do. We're supposed to take that with us. Okay, and once again, this is just part of the learning curve of being able to pull this out of our windowed mind and place it where it needs to be so that we can have strength and walk in that. Okay, the journey's long. It's not easy. He said this was not going to be easy. We're always being attacked. We've got a brother that just came in here from South Africa, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he's been sending me some emails, and he's looking at all the things that are going on in this world, and I understand his anxiety and his confusion and the depression that can come from that kind of stuff. That's exactly what the Lion wants us to be looking at, and that's exactly what the Most High doesn't want us to be looking at.
Right.
Okay. He wants us focused on him.
Exactly. We have several people right now really struggling in that area. Same thing, really struggling the same thing. Rule, I want to go to you and ask you about where do you think you are in the journey right now with your brother just passing about less than a month ago?
Okay. I was just talking to Yami about this because how can I explain? My brother was 13 years older than I. Mm-hmm. So when I was 10, he was 23.
Right.
He was probably more of a father to me than my father at that time because we were immigrants. Mm-hmm. There was a large, I was born when my father was, I guess, in his late 40s. So there was a bigger age difference. Sure. And I was telling Yami that sometimes I feel guilty that I haven't felt a real grief, because he was like the most important man in my life. And I don't know if it's that I'm fighting it.
Well, you might not be there yet. It's okay. I mean, there's so many stages to grief, right?
And
are you mad because he left?
No.
Okay.
If I'm totally honest, I was more mad at my sister-in-law.
Because,
okay, you got to understand that I worked with my family. It was a store and we all worked together. Mm-hmm. And I think my brother was like ready for retirement, but she was a workaholic, or really, like he would say at, let's say 3:00 in the afternoon, he woke up to her, hey, let's go home, let's cook. And she said, no. And he would sit there and wait for her, So I was really pissed at her, very pissed at her.
Okay.
But then I saw her take care of him for the last 6 months, and the way she took care of him. that then I felt bad that I felt that way towards her. So it's been different because she was like a rock with him, taking care of him. He stayed at home the last 6 months. He became very fragile, and she had to do everything for him. And she never like, let's take him to a home, or she dug in there. And like I told you, they were together all their life. But then I felt bad that maybe I don't know, that I misjudged her, or I shouldn't have judged her at all.
Well, maybe you just didn't see that maybe she was the rock through the whole marriage. Maybe,
Yeah, but I wasn't
kept
seeing
him
that.
on the right road all the time. And when she made him stay at work, that was just part of the whole thing of her being firm and in charge kind of thing, right? So,
But that's it. I'm still trying to deal with that he's no longer here.
sure. Well, I think a first spot might be to go to Yahuwah and try to get over your anger at her. Even though it was a long time ago, it still adds to your pain right now with your brother gone. Because part of that anger is, if she hadn't worked him so hard, maybe he wouldn't have gone so soon.
Well, the whole thing is that the last time he got really bad hurt was kind of like that, because he fell outside the store carrying a bunch of stuff coming into work where she didn't stay behind to help him. So I took it all upon her. You understand?
I do.
And I haven't talked to this to no one, not even Yabin.
Yeah.
This is the first time I talk about this.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. I do. And it sounds like you're not going to get on with your brother until you go to Yahuwah about the wife first, the sister-in-law. That would be my experiential experience. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, brother, man. I feel your pain. Sometimes what we think is judgment towards somebody else for the actions or the way that they're behaving in their life is not actually a judgment. We're not condemning them to anything. Okay, we have an opinion because we're concerned about their behavior, and we can see the negative effect of that. Okay, my brother-in-law wouldn't hurt a fly, but he wouldn't allow my sister to move away from her depression to become a better person, a more free person, to let that butterfly in her fly. And I had a very negative opinion about that. I have a very negative opinion about some of the things that my mom and dad have gone through. Okay, but I'm not going to condemn either one of that. But that's kind of the way we think about it. We think we're condemning them, but we're just genuinely concerned about the things that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing. Okay, and somebody came to me after my son passed away that I've known for an extremely long time, and he says, "Bill, do you feel any guilt for your son passing away, that you could have done something, or you did something that brought that on him?" And I thought about it for a second, and I said, you know what? I did at first, because we think that there's always something, or we know looking back that there was something better we always could have done. Okay. But sometimes it goes just exactly the way that it's supposed to go, whether we like that or not. And we'll tend to beat ourselves up over something that we maybe have just misplaced in our own mind and our own heart. Okay, because ultimately you love your family just as much as you love your brother, but there were some things that didn't quite hit the mark. Okay, that's just when he says to love your enemy and do good for them. He's not just talking about people that we don't know that come against us as enemies. Sometimes our own family members can look like enemies. Okay, the only way that we can love them is to realize that they've all been deceived and misled too. They're walking in confusion, brother. Okay. And that's something that he gets to sort out at the end of all this. Okay. We just got to find that peace in knowing that, okay, I just got to love them and forgive. Ask the Father to forgive me for feeling that way, but that's a normal thought. It's a normal feeling. When we see something that's going on that's wrong, we know it's wrong. We want somebody to fix it. Fix that. Don't behave that way. Boom. Want to slap them upside the head. get in line, okay? But that's a process that we have to walk through. And everybody has felt that. Once again, go back and read 1 Peter 5. There's nothing that's happened that nobody else has felt the way that you feel right now about those situations, okay? And he gives us the opportunity to overcome that, brother, and walk in love.
Thank you, William. That's a real good start on where you can go with Yahuwah with that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah.
I love you guys. Man.
You'll work through it, work through the sister-in-law thing, and then it'll be good. Kathy, how you doing over here, hon?
I'm good. I'm good.
Any comments or questions or thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I kind of feel like Raul does, because I still, my brother Chris that died in January, he was kind of like a daddy to me.
Okay.
He was 12 years older than me, and we was very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have not, it still hasn't hit me. But when my mom died in 2007, I fell apart, and it took almost 8 years before I could finally get around to accepting what, that she was really gone. And
Sure.
Yah helped me through it. I knew Yahuwah at that time,
Good.
but I had no strength when it came to losing my mama. But when I lost my brother in January, it's like it didn't hit me. I cried a little bit, but it wasn't nothing compared to my mom. And I lost my older brother in 2018, who I was very close to, and it didn't hit me at all like that with my mom either. So it makes me wonder why. I know I loved them. I love them with all my heart.
Yeah.
But it didn't affect me the same way.
Mothers are always a little bit different from siblings.
And I was the baby out of 8 kids too. So.
Wow. I think there's a transformation that we go through that maybe we don't recognize. When we're going through those things and we're walking where we're walking right now, we're building ourselves up in strength and word, whether we recognize that or not, when we're at that weakest point in our life. Those things, those deaths, the death, of my son, my brother, my sister, those are never going to go away as long as we're still alive. Okay. The storm gets calmed. And then there's times when it'll come back in and it'll just rock us to the core. Okay. I think one of the great things that I found out about this walk and the truth of discovering the truth in the word and what it really says has given me the most peace in regard to any of those situations that I never would have had if I didn't know this stuff. Okay. Right. And that's a part of this discovery of why when Margaret asked me to do this, it seemed really important to me, because there are some things that we have to discover. We're going to go down rabbit holes that nobody wants to go down, and we're going to turn things over that are going to show how corruption crept in and how deep the paganism crept in also, that is lodged in the minds of all humanity. And we're when we get done with sleeping with our fathers, we're going to go into another place, and that's going to be into the doctrine of hell. And some people, I would hope that everybody would be able to see things from a different light when we pull back that veil and see how this all came about. Okay.
Yeah.
There's going to be blessing in that.
So, William, you had a son that passed, and you also had siblings that passed. Did you have?
My son passed away in 2011. In October, 9 months later, my older brother passed away, and then 2 years later, two years ago, my sister passed away, and my uncle just passed away a few months ago. So I'm 66.
And just a baby.
Some of that stuff, it kind of comes along. It kind of comes, we're at that place in time.
It does come along as we get older, but the one thing I wanted to kind of center on is, did you have a bigger emotional difference between the son passing and the siblings and your uncle?
Absolutely. I was devastated when Jay passed, and like I said, that took 3 years for me to really get to a point where I actually started to feel like myself again. And I was actively involved again in the things in my life that I enjoyed doing. And I did them with so much of a greater appreciation for everything as a gift. Okay. And then when my brother passed 9 months later, it wasn't that devastating to me because I started to see and understand a little bit more about cause and effect and why these things happen. Okay. And how sin really looks in our life and what we suffer from that. Okay. And as it's moved along, and I've lost 2 really good friends in between that too, in that span. So that's 5 people in the last 10 years, which 6 people in the last 10 years, which there are other people that have more experiences with that, but it's gotten easier and easier as the time has gone along because I know what the end game looks like.
Right.
This is just a transition. Okay. And when we wrap all of our essence around those emotions and stuff, we're going to get lost. Okay. We're going to get lost in that. Okay. And that's where going to these scriptures for strength and comfort and building ourselves up and getting that root to dig really deep into the foundation and that cornerstone.
Yeah.
Then we're anchored and we can ride out any storm because he wants us to. He wants us to go to the other side.
Sure.
Okay.
So Kathy, maybe that'll help you a little bit in knowing that our different relationships have different dynamics. And then when they pass, those dynamics change how we handle their passing. Okay.
Yeah, I can understand that. I also, it crosses my mind a lot. I was raised in a Catholic family.
Everybody, all of us.
Yeah, and all of my, like almost all of my siblings are Catholic except for 2 of them now. One's Jehovah's Witness and one is like a full gospel type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about my brothers that died and my mom who were Catholic, and they didn't know Yahuwah. And it crosses my mind so much. Are they going to get a chance to know Yahuwah at one point, or this is it,
William will probably cover that in the future, but I think we're responsible for what we know pretty much when we get there. If this is just a short answer, and William will cover this better later, but is it just recently, like 2013 or something like that, that the name started to be released to us again and started to become known again? Somebody can correct me on that year. But up until that time, Yahuwah's name was still kind of hidden. So those that have already passed, they might not have had the opportunity to learn the name. So
I know as of 2005 or 5-6 area, the only websites I found was Lou White's.
Right.
A friend of mine, we call her Navaya, and I had one, and we couldn't find nothing else. Right. It was like almost non-existent. You'd find all kind of Jewish stuff, but you didn't find the name of Yahuwah much.
Well, the very truth of the matter is Lou White is highly responsible for the making known the name of Yahuwah through his showing us the lies and bringing all that forth. So he is an amazing part of all of our walk to get us to where we are today. And so Yahuwah was very kind to have that man dedicate his life to the lies and bringing those forth for all of us. And if we could ever get him to teach on the scripture, you would find out that he is dynamite teaching on scripture too. But he doesn't go there anymore.
Lou is the one that brought me to the name through everything I've read.
Right.
And I was believing in the name Yahweh at that time.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to believe me, but I was so thankful. Several of the ladies that I was going to the meetings with came to Yahuwah using the name. And I was so thankful that at least they understood and accepted it,
Yeah. Yeah. So, all of us came to it through his books. Just all of us, everybody in Nuts from Life, everybody. So Jane, tell me where your thoughts are right now. Oh, you're muted, sweetie. I did it to you. Unmute.
Just trying to apply all that William has shared today with the situation. You know, I'm perfectly comfortable with my mother's passing.
Yeah.
However, you know, Chris and Mike were stolen at 18. They were 18 and 20 years old.
So,
And that is really, really rough to accept.
yes.
And I know that that's why my sister Dale has,
So much
you
trouble.
know, her whole life was around that girl.
Yeah.
And when she passed,
Oh,
I remember I was in Nashville at the time, and when they called me in the middle of the night, of course, you know, the screaming that I heard in the background, and how was I going to get from Nashville to Carthage, Mississippi with the news I just got?
yeah.
As Yahuwah would have it, my brother, my little brother, William, had brought my piano to me in Nashville. And so he was there when the call came.
Oh, wow.
I had family with me.
Oh, good.
And I know that that was his hand, because I could have never I could have never driven to Carthage. I could not have.
So you went together?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it still is raw today
Sure.
as it was that day.
I'm positive.
You
Yep.
know, we think about the babies she would have had. When I see my other niece, Michelle, having all these beautiful children that had babies.
Yep.
Dale don't have that.
Yeah.
And I feel very, very sorry that that got taken away from her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's still raw. I can stop and look at pictures of Chris or think about her, and I will just, I'm no good, you know. And she, you know, she was a seaplace goer, but of course she didn't know Yahuwah, the name.
Well, she wasn't hardly old enough to know the name yet.
She wasn't. She was going to be a school teacher.
Yeah. Well, that runs in the family, teacher.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep
So
working through it.
let me say something real. Let
Go
me
ahead.
say something quick, Margaret. Thank you. If you guys want to continue to walk this journey with me, we're going to find that we're going to come to a place where we're going to have a real strength and a real comfort that looks very different than the way things may look right now. Next week, when we go into Asleep with Our Fathers, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these things. And then when we get into the doctrine of hell, we're going to open up a lot of stuff. And it's been life-changing for me, and it has given me so much peace and comfort of knowing exactly what's going to happen with everybody that's been lied to and deceived in this world, and those who haven't heard the name. Okay. And I think it might help you maybe get a little perspective on how cause and effect works, and the weapons of warfare that are used in, you know, the principalities and powers that are and rulers of darkness, and what they use against us, and how the Most High really looks at that kind of stuff for all of us that are down here and deceived. Okay. There's two bloodlines that I truly believe walk this planet still today, and that's the bloodline of Cain and Hasatan, and then there's the bloodline of Adam, okay, through Seth. And
Seth.
he says, when he says that he will save, every knee will bow, and he will save. He came to save all men. I take that literally, okay? But we're going to look at that, because it's my opinion, and I'm just going to throw the evidence out there that I've discovered, and then you guys get to run with it. You know, I highly suggest that, you know, with whatever it is that we're doing here, you see everything, you believe nothing, and you do your own research. And if you're not willing to do your own research, that can be a very precarious ledge to be on. Okay.
Yes, I agree. I just had to write something down so I wouldn't forget it. Sorry. All right, so I just want to see where Dougie is and then Joseph, and then that's where we are. How are you doing there, Dougie? I can't get used to Dougie. It's Douglas.
I love it.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
That's Dougie Downer.
Dougie Downer, go ahead.
Well, my experience, obviously I lost a lot of people I knew. I can't call them friends, but I lost a lot of people I knew, and so become somewhat cold.
Yeah.
However, and this is unique in a sense of why someone or when someone passes. And when my mother passed, she was in a lot of pain for many years, a lot of physical problems and things like that. And I simply prayed for whatever was best for her.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I found a lot of people were around her wanting her to get better enough to keep living. But why were they so interested in that? And that was for their own, I felt, selfish motives.
Your own reasons.
It was about themselves and not about her.
Yeah.
So this is unique though only to that category of people,
Yeah.
because I cannot fathom losing a child.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Or even losing your spouse is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not easy at all. Joseph.
Me and my mom ended up arguing all the time about the tree of all things.
I can't imagine, Dougie. And Joseph.
And December 25th, and she was always wanting to throw this in my face that God wasn't going to wait till the last minute and change everything. And I just finally got tired of arguing with her, so she died not listening to me. Now I've got 10 folks that have cut me off because they still hung up on the tree on December 25th and the J name, and I'm just, they won't listen. And that bothers me, even though they're not dead. That's still, I'm grieving over it.
Well, they're dead in a way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but no, I think my dad died in like 2009. My mom died like 2011.
Mm.
So, or 2013. I can't remember anymore. So I mean, since then, the only person that I've really lost, and we wasn't together anymore over the same reasons, the tree, Santa Claus, and all that stupid mess. She died, and that was more of a grief for my kids than it was me. It's like, you're the one that left. I ain't gonna worry about you no more. So.
Oh, you're a mess, Joseph. Well, we've all been through loss at some point or another. I know I lost my mom at 30, so I was pretty young when she passed. But yeah, it's just, we're all going to go through it. There's no way around it. I think this is.
I can say one thing:
Sure.
we never forget.
Never.
We never forget.
Never.
Because I lost my father at the age of 20 when I was in the service, and you always see something that reminds you,
Yeah,
and you never forget. You learn to deal with it,
you do.
but you never forget.
You don't forget. Listen, I can remember picking up the phone to call my mom to get a recipe from her, and she'd been dead for 4 years, 5 years.
Oh.
I mean, it was just, and I go like, who am I trying? I can't get through to her. Who am I trying to call? The long distance didn't go that far. Anyway, so it does happen. Well, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I lost my dad when I was 11. And you talk about memories.
That's bad.
The memories I have, and please don't take this in the wrong way, was the belt.
Oh yeah.
And he was strict and all that, but I learned I deserved every single one of them. But he was always trying to mentor, teach, and like that. But He was also like, there is the right way to do it. And if you stray from that, well, guess what?
Well, I bet you didn't have a whole lot of trouble in the military though.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah, because he prepped you for it before you got there, right? Oh my goodness. Well, guys, this has been amazing. I do hope that each and every one of you will come back next week, same time, same station, same Zoom number, and we will go a little deeper and explore some more things. William and I are going to be on again tonight at 7:00. If you know anyone that might be interested in going through some of the things that we've gone through today, please be sure to share NotStreamLife.com with them. They'll get on the list and I'll get the email to them. So that's about all I know for now.
Well,
Thank
I
you,
just
Bill.
want to
Wait a minute.
thank you. Thank you.
Yami says bye, but she's taking care of the alarm system.
Okay, that's fine. My alarm system went off a couple times today too. Yes, William, where are you? You good?
Jackie had her hand up.
I think Jackie had it up from before. Do you have another thing, Jackie?
Oh, no, that was just waving.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was an emoji. wave.
William, will you send us off with the blessing before we roll? Or Douglas?
Yeah, I will. Jane, you wanted to say something?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want my appreciation to be known to Margaret for helping get all of this together. It
My pleasure.
really is very soothing. William, your search for all of this to help us has just filled my heart, and I love it. I thank you so much for being dedicated to helping the Notsarum family, and it was amazing, and I look forward to the next time for sure.
Thank you, sister. It's all him, you know. He's dragged me through the quagmire to bring me out the other side for a particular reason.
He's
you know,
usually
Yep. So love you guys. Thank you for coming. I hope we can continue the journey of discovery, because that's all it is. And, you know, we get a choice in life. We choose life or we choose death. And I think everybody here's made that choice already. And Jane, if you could get your sister to come, man, it'd be a blessing to talk to her, you know.
Well, she won't even, she doesn't have anything to do with this side of the family. You know, it's her.
Somehow we might get the video to her. We'll try to figure it out.
We've cut that chasm, and there's
Cut that cord.
no communication whatsoever.
Wow.
Okay. All right, guys. Blessings. And we'll see you next time. Yahuwah bless you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah.
Baruch
Haba
haba
b'shem Yahuwah.
Dougie, stay on. I'm going to turn off the recorder.
Hey,